Hey, I wanted to come back to you on the email that you sent a few weeks ago, and sorry it's taken me so long to get back to you. I had a few things I need to finish up on my previous assignment, and last week I got really sick, unfortunately, but feeling much better. So I wanted to get back to you and talk to you about what you were proposing there. Now, I am not exactly sure what you had in mind, but I have had a lot of people over the years, different agencies who have asked me to, to utilize my network and to see, if I can bring in business for them and get kind of commissions off that. And I'm not at all interested in something like that. I think given my background in, working in agencies and running agencies and starting my own agency, I think I have a lot of skills and talent that I can bring to an agency like yourself, to Capital Numbers. And I really wanted to go into that in some detail and tell you what I'm looking for, but most importantly, what I think I could contribute, what I would love to, what kind of results I might be able to bring to your company. And I thought I would do this, by a video and just record it, so you can look at it and share it with whoever might be involved in that decision, and also just to really go into the details and to look specifically at things that I've done, and to look at things that like what I think that I would be able to do, and then you can see if that fits in with what your vision is and what your strategy is. So I'm going to basically go into this in three parts, and this will be around 30 minutes, maybe a little longer. I'm going to try to edit down a little bit. And I want to cover the three topics. The first one it'll be around sales and marketing. So that's critically important growing any agency. And I believe I'm very good at sales, especially being involved in pitches and, and organizing sales teams. And also, there's some things that I've done lately that could be very interesting as a new revenue source for you. So I'll show you that in detail. The next section of things that I want to look at will be around talent management and change management, just about managing people. And I think I have both, insight in this both from working with you, from working with directly on my project, and then just also what I found managing agencies. So to ensure that the billable hours for each individual employee is very high, that's critically important for the success of companies, which I'm sure having 300 over 300 people. And then the last section I'll look at is just operations, and I think there's a lot of things here that I could contribute to Capital Numbers, and so I'm going to go into that briefly, and then just summarize and then tell you look what I'm looking for specifically around financial compensation. And so I hope this is helpful for you. No matter what, there should be some thought-provoking things in here, and stuff that even if we don't work together, that could be helpful or interesting for you. And if there might be just some projects or something that you might want to work on if it's not a full-time thing. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get into it. So I want to take you specifically through things that I've done in the past and things that I'm not sure where you're at in these areas, but I found some things that have worked very well for us in terms of scaling an agency, and then also companies. So there's both that one side of helping the clients to do better in sales and to help them with their marketing. Also that the whole area around what they're calling growth marketing. And that of course is what every company is trying to do, but there's some very specific things around there that I've been part of that are quite interesting in terms of how to really scale up a company. And I'll take you through a few of those things. So when I had the agency myself, our agency was split into two parts. You had one which was the design part, and the other part which was more around projects and digital marketing and things like that. So we typically ran a lot of the day-to-day things out of Asana, and I like that quite a bit. I think you can really run a company well with Asana, and that's something I would recommend, and something I would, if you were interested to move towards it if you're not doing that. Just in terms of all the project management, getting everybody on board, getting everybody together to see where you're at, and we had a very specific way that we did what we call helicopter traffic and traffic. So the daily meetings across the different teams, the stand-ups to see where everybody's at, and to really get down into the details. So we tended to have for the agency, I made sure that every single project had templates. So when you start up a particular kind of project, then that project would have a template that goes with it. So if it's a design project, it would have one kind of template. If it was like conversion rate optimization, it would have another kind of template, and then just very detailed. So, the way that I look at that, and I've written a core article recently about this, and it's something that I work on quite a bit with the teams, which is on one side you work in the company, and on the other side you work on the company. So when you're working in the company, you shouldn't be thinking too much. It's kind of strange to say, but you should know exactly what you need to do, and you just run through a process and you just do it. And that helps the teams to really be very, very clear about what they're doing and where they're at. So on the other side, you have working on the company, and that's actually improving these templates. And every couple weeks going through and having a meeting specifically with the team members and project managers to see how can we do this better. And then you distribute this out to the teams and see how everybody can contribute back into it, and then you get better and better and better. And I'll look at this a little bit later in the operations area in terms of the metrics that go along with this to make sure that you're able to improve on a regular basis. So that was how I was running the agency internally. Now, if I go over to the last project I was just working on, there were some interesting things there that are worth looking at, and I want to just pull that up. Because inside of the way that we were working there, we had to go through with the sales teams and to look really in detail about how they were working. And let me just pull up an example. So one of the salespeople, now I don't recommend working this in sales in Asana. I don't think that's the best place for it, but this company was particularly disorganized and poorly run. So we just started there to kind of very quickly to scratch out what are the processes that they actually followed. And the first thing that we did was just looked at exactly what they were doing as a sales team. And all of these things, are things that you can transfer and very easily use the things that are effective. So from here, what we did is we dug really into the detail of looking at how to better combine the sales process with marketing automation. So looking specifically where can we send out different kind of email automation to try to help that particular sales conversation. And then when should a follow-up happen, and just being really, really specific, and then integrating that into the CRM, which is a really critical part for salespeople, mainly because they typically are really good with people and typically not as good with systems. So with our CRM, we implemented a particular sales strategy, a process which we call the buying clock. And you can see here in the stage area, and it helped to ensure that when we discussed the status of a particular prospect, that it was really specific of what it meant. And this, of course, works in with things like spend selling and other kind of sales methodologies. But generally, you look at it like times on a clock. And inside of that, you've got you starting at the 0, and then 3 o'clock means that somebody becomes interested. At 6 o'clock, they've actually looked into what this buying decision they're making, and then each of the other steps and each other, let's say, points on the clock mean that a specific thing has happened. So when you speak to the sales team and you ask, where is this prospect at, and they also put in the CRM like they're at 9:30, and then we know exactly what that means, and there's a process behind that to make sure that everybody's on the line on the same page around it. So that was pretty interesting. So kind of putting those things together, having a very concrete process, making sure that you're mixing the marketing automation and sales automation, and then managing the team in a very specific way that you know exactly where you're at in terms of sales, and making sure that all goes into the CRM to manage things as well as possible. So that's something that I really enjoy doing. And then going further than just managing those teams is actually being involved in the pitches. And I love sales, and I love being part of the sales process and trying to help customers to make decisions. So let me look a little bit at some other aspects of sales. Now, getting on the design part of things, one of our clients was Samsonite. We won that client and was a very interesting client. Did a good amount of business with them. And when we worked, we had this very interesting and specific way that we did brainstorming. So, and that's one of the things that as you do design when we look at your competencies, that design work there, that the creativity that comes in from an agency is really critical to how much their clients value them. And we had the process where this is the whiteboard that we used when we did a brainstorming session. And these are all just for one particular project that we worked on. If I remember correctly,
It was around 12 or 13 really solid ideas, that could have all been used, and then we took the very best one. So this methodology that we developed over time, over a few years, about how to do really productive brainstorming sessions, had great results. And sometimes the clients would even just pay for having all the different ideas. They were interested in just to see how many different things that we came up with, even if we just presented usually 3. And that was a lot of fun and something I really enjoyed. And then we also did a lot of the digital work, the digital projects inside of that as well. So from conversion rate optimization, all the same competencies that you have, the SEO, the social media, and then now the growth marketing. That's something that I'm really familiar with. Those are most of the things around sales and putting in a good sales process and improving that over time. Let me talk just a little bit about marketing. One of the things that we came up with with these 75 different companies that we were working with is a way to go in and look at the particular software solution and really be able to synthesize and put together all of the most important parts around the value proposition of that software, and then be able to create materials for that company. And this is really powerful, and this is something that could be implemented. And you do the digital marketing part of things, and this process could just be put straight away in. And the companies just going through this particular process of really honing in on the value that they provide to customers, and to align the different departments within the company, and then come up with a plan, for all the materials and things that they need to put into place, both the digital marketing and the traditional marketing, and really looking at a specific problem with it, which is. And I don't believe that there's many agencies in the globe right now that have really tackled the retention problem. And this is specifically looking at how do you improve retention for a company. Almost all organizations are interested in growth because their churn rates tend to be particularly high. And if they don't focus on getting new customers, and they just focused on the customers they had, they would very, very quickly go down in their sales because there's so many customers they lose. And that we were looking at how, from a marketing perspective, how do you really tackle that retention problem, and what can marketing do to help, and not just about creating interesting materials, but really to look deeply into how the company actually works, what's unique about them, what the customers value the most, and then being very hyper-focused about that and being able to ensure that is getting delivered, and then communicating what's being done to the customers, and so that they can grow organically and not just about new customer acquisition. So that's something that I think that as an agency, being able to really promote and say we focus on retention as well as new business, that I think that would be a massively interest to the market. I think it would be something that could bring a lot of revenue, because I don't think there's many agencies who are talking about it. It's all about new business. So that could be something that I think could be immediately interesting. So let me move away from the sales and marketing area over to talent management and change management. So, people, I think it's used a lot, but I think it's used a lot because it's so true. Is that the most important asset you have really are the people that are working with you. And what I've seen, we worked together here for the project I had, and we worked together in the past as well. And I think that I would say it was kind of a mixed experience, because on the one hand I had Sarkor, and he's excellent. So he's a great developer, and anytime that I kind of, let's say, tested a bit or tried to see get a feeling for how his skill level, he is very good. Now on the other hand, Ang Suman and then also working with Chen Mai, like that wasn't a very good experience. She's somebody who would probably be quite good with good processes. If she really had a good playbook to follow, I think she would follow it well, and she was nice to talk to and things like that. Now, on the other hand, I had kind of a negative experience in looking at the DevOps thing. Ang Suman, I think he was good at a certain level, but somebody who really knows this area well, and I guess I know these things quite well because I've had to do it both for clients and then also for my own project. So I really know what the best in class processes are for these. So this would be an example of a place where you need a better playbook, but you have someone that could be pretty good at it, knowing really well what needs to be done in that area, and getting the person to create a playbook and processes behind it to ensure that they're world class, and then and then go up from there. And if it's always just relying, let's say, on the individuals, a lot of times you can have quite inconsistent results. I think Sarkar, he said it himself. He learned a lot from working with me, but of course not from a coding standpoint, but from managing and planning. And I wanted to just look a little bit at my philosophy here and what I think. I think if you look at your competencies. A big part of your competencies and where you're excellent have to do with coding and having to put together like mobile app development, product development, or front end development, and then graphic design. So I wanted to look at just a couple things here that to me would be, I think that I could immediately bring value to the organization in implementing them. So first of all, with Sarkar, I implemented like a weekly cadence. So the basic idea around this was pretty straightforward. Is that you want people to complete their work within a week and to do things on a weekly basis. So because most of the time projects tend to be run over budget, or they're late. Or they end up where like you have a particular timeline and everybody has to like work super hard right at the very end in order to get it by a timeline, and stress levels go way up, and people work way too many hours at the last minute because of, and it's not poor planning, but in a way it is poor planning. And what I've noticed over and over again in development teams, the thinking happens kind of at the time when somebody gets to a particular problem, and then they can't have, when they get to that point, then they didn't anticipate what problems they'll run into, and then they end up blowing out their planning, and then that ends up blowing out the budgets on things. So what I had implemented, and what I would implement if you wanted me to, if you agree with this, is that on Monday, that wherever you're at inside of the organization, whether you're doing front-end app development, whether you're doing mobile app development or web application development, Mondays, at least, especially the first part of the day, is really about planning. And not just saying, oh, this week I'm going to do this and this and this, but really like detailed plans that project managers have to sign off for by the end of the day on Monday, that to show that a developer has really looked in detail at the problems they're going to face. And each time that they're, like, they run into issues and that they haven't investigated things clearly enough on Monday, you record that, and you get showing that, how many weeks that person has not planned well. And if they do that too often, then you get rid of them and you fire them, and but you have to have a reporting there so that you can see that when people are not planning at the beginning of the week carefully enough. So what I was doing inside of that is that I was asking for each of the particular issues in the development. Let me just show you real quick here. Well, the way I had done this is that I had required that before a particular issue was worked on, that there needed to be this detailed overview, where it was clear that an investigation had been done, and that it was, what exactly was going to be done. Now, this never got to the level that I wanted it at. I didn't go too deep into this. I would like it even more detailed, but the person needs to investigate closely enough at the beginning of the week to ensure that they don't miss anything, and that their time, what I would be doing is I would be, recording how long it takes people to do things versus what their estimates are, and always keeping track of that and seeing who's quite good at estimating their time and who's quite bad at it, and making sure that when they do their investigation to review exactly what needed to be done, that they had taken into account the things that they needed in order to really have a good idea of how long it would take. And then from there, do all of the different kind of planning. And Asana's quite good for that if you have the project management. I don't like teamwork. It's not so user friendly. And I've used it before, and I found that it just tends to not get used very much. I just think they just have not worked on usability enough on it. And Asana tends to be a system that's a lot easier to build and to kind of, it's just, for some reason it just has a better usability. And I guess makes sense because the founder, started up Facebook and then he went over to that. I think he's really quite obsessed about usability, and I think it shows in the difference between the systems. After the Monday planning is to work on the specific jobs that people have, and then tie everything up on Friday. So basically, the idea is to ship every 7, so every week. So ship weekly, and ship things that are valuable to the customer each week. So plan what that will be out on Monday. Do your work starting the end of the day on Monday and on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then Friday. Write your tests, finish up, make sure you've commented everything, make sure everything by the end of the day is all tied up, and then keep track of those kind of things and see how much code people are writing. It brings up a topic that I think is really important. If you break down it and you think more like in a factory, or you think more in terms of really what is it that each person delivers. So if you have, for example, on a mobile app development, what the person produces, that's lines of code. That's literally the thing that they're producing, is they're writing code. And when you look at that and you say, well, how do you know whether or not those lines of, let's say we call those units, and those units that they're producing would be lines of code, how do you know that the quality of the code is good? So that would be things like bugs. How many bugs are produced? How many, and then for example, how much of that code is then passed off by quality assurance. So that interworking of the different groups gives you some kind of quality checks to see whether or not the work that the coder is doing is high quality or not. And that goes into any area. Graphic designer, the same. You have the number of screens that they produce, and then whether those screens are being by both an internal quality check, which might be from project manager or from management, and then you would have an external quality bar, and you want to make sure that quality check that's done internally really does a good job, is very highly correlated to the external quality check from the customer and something like that being approved. And actually putting all of those things in a place so we can take a look at it and see, kind of start to get an idea of what operationally the factories that you have internally, look like. And this goes for salespeople, it goes for all the operational people, it goes across the board. And for everything people are doing, it's important to figure out what exactly do you produce, and then how do we know whether or not it's high quality or not. And how long does it take you to actually produce those kind of things? And it's not difficult to do all of that. It just isn't done very often. Most of the time, companies don't take the time to really figure out for every employee, what are they doing? And then even worse is a lot of times companies, it's normal that you have an employee that does several things, but then they go switching between things, and actually you end up backing up all of your projects even longer because of the way that people manage their own time. So that's one thing I've learned in working with remote teams, is that when you work remotely, you have to have this kind of measurement and analytics and employee reviews in place. Otherwise, it can be quite difficult to manage a remote team. But a lot of times, because when you have everybody in office, it's kind of an assumption that they're working well, but we know that's not the case. But a lot of times, this type of discipline and structure is not put in because the managers just kind of look around and see, and then there's you always find that when these things are put into place, even in an office, that you have big improvements in productivity. And as an agency, you know how critical that is. You know that you have to have a certain level, around 90%, 85-90% of the person's time needs to be billable. So that's the end point, is to make sure that you're getting that knowing what that rate is of billable hours for each person, and then finding out ways to make that better while helping the employees to enjoy themselves. And one of the things that's interesting is that Sarkor, although we were working in quite a structured way with and being quite looking at these and quite demanding, he really enjoyed himself. And he said, I was really happy to work with me, and he really learned a lot, and it really helped him be a better developer. So these kind of things can be put into place, and people can really enjoy it and have a much better time at work. So it works well on both sides. So let me look at just a little bit more around operations. So I think I've covered that, the kind of aspects that I think that I can bring into the business. But just concretely, as I've had a decade of experience in finance, and then I've worked and I've run my own companies, almost every aspect of the agency, of a kind of digital agency or of more traditional agencies, I've been involved in that. So I have playbooks for pretty much everything, and I know your company, you've been around for a long time and you've been doing this for a long time. So I don't expect that, of course, that if I came in I would need to change, just changing everything. But if there are places where we look at how I might have done something, and can merge it, or to again to improve the way that you're doing things, or just bring some insights into it that might make it more profitable or more interesting for you. Also, I work right now. I'm on the board of a company here in Belgium, which is a growth hacking agency, and that's been quite interesting to work on, as well as in this last assignment that I had around the marketing thing, which is really looking how to tackle the retention issue. And the reason I bring this up in the operations area is that when a company works really well, like when every different aspect of the company, from the employees, the finance, management, all the different, the marketing, the sales, in all of those kind of things, when procurement, when all those things are working well together, and you're able to funnel all that information up to the client, and clients know about it and know how much effort you're making on their behalf, they stay. You can retain them much better. And this is one of the things that we found when looking across these 75 different software solutions, is that it's really the ability. You don't necessarily always have to be doing every new things. You don't have to be changing things all the time. It's a lot about just doing really well at the basics, and getting people to do the basics, and not to get lost in all the new stuff, but just to do what they know, and do that at a world-class level. And that's what I hold myself to. In everything that I do, I want to be world-class. I want to find the absolute best way to do it. And that's why I'm very interested in a more operational role, because I would like to work in an organization where people really want to be world class, and want to create something lasting, and something that has value, and to have a ton of fun doing it, and just see what to make of something. So let me just summarize everything that I've covered, and then talk a little bit about what potential next steps could be, and then just see what you think. So I believe that I bring a lot more value than just a network. Of course, I have one, but they can really help with running sales teams, running marketing teams, and actually selling with clients, and especially around retention. And I'm very open to travel, very open to helping to grow your business. I believe I have a great experience and long experience in talent management, in helping people to get the best out of the people. And I believe I can help get the best out of your people. And in helping to change the way that people work, to be more process driven. I can see that there's a need for that. And I think that I could help make people much more efficient, and help improve the billable hours for them. I believe my experience with working in multiple agencies and running multiple agencies would be very helpful here. I really would love to come to the office there in India a few times a month, and spend a week down there, or 4 or 5 days. And work really closely with you, and then come back or go where I'm needed. Operationally, I think I can help. I think I can help in a lot of places, and I think that the people, the employees globally, would enjoy working with me. And I think that I can bring a lot of innovation to the agency, and I'd be really happy to do that.
I figured I would just say a couple words around compensation, just to make sure there's no surprises or anything like that, just to make sure we're on the same page about it. As a consultant, I've typically invoiced 5,000 euros a week, and I just do that through standard invoicing. I have a company here, and it makes it easier than having to set up, employment contracts and things like that. So I just wanted to let you know what my expectations were on that. Of course, I'm open to negotiation of finding the right kind of agreement or arrangement. So I wanted to thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Hopefully that was interesting for you and helpful, and I hope that I was able to show the contribution that I potentially could make. And I would love to follow up with interviews or however you would like to further the discussion. Of course, you can reach me anytime. Um, and I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.